Now we're starting to see a lot of confusion over the WAEC exams in Lagos State, or the modalities of it, or what is going to happen, or how it's going to be carried out, both the revision sessions and then the exam proper. So now the government of Lagos State has decided that they are going to convert boarders, that's the boarding school students, to day students. That's basically what it means, because they say that if you are a boarding school student and your school is in Lagos State, you have to always come from home every single day. So it's essentially day school. So you have basically converted them to day schooling students. That's what you have just done. But there's a very huge problem with that. But even before we get to that, let's just think about the reason why they're trying to do that. They're trying to limit the spread, which will be inevitable in hostels. And I actually understand that. If you have ever gone to a boarding school before, you know that people don't carry out any form of social distancing in boarding schools. Especially in boys' hostels and things like that. There's no need for that. People don't even care about that. Guys are going to play ball all around. No matter how you try to prevent them from doing it, they're going to play ball, they're going to roll over, they're going to play, horse plays and things like that in their rooms. They're going to mix up. It's just impossible for you to stop them from mixing up in schools. And that's the reason why most places have been trying not to open schools as soon as possible, even all around the world. Although many countries are now reopening their schools, but it's one of the reasons why many schools have not been reopened worldwide, because they understand that students don't care about all these things. How many students do you really think cares about all this COVID-19 and covering your nose and all those things like that? They really don't. Most of them don't give a crap about that. All they just care about is having fun. They just care about having fun. Honestly, if you really release students to do what they want to do, they don't care about all those things you guys are worrying about, especially when you understand that they are not in the vulnerable class. And that is actually true. Young children and young adults are not in a vulnerable class. It is very, very hard for a young adult that does not have any pre-existing condition. That is, if you don't have any serious ailments like maybe diabetes, like maybe kidney disease, like maybe heart disease, like maybe lung disease before, it is very, very hard for you to die from this disease. Like from COVID-19, it is almost impossible for you to die from it. And it's not something that we are saying in Nigeria alone. It's something that has been confirmed in every single continent on the planet. It has been confirmed in Asia, in China, and all those countries in Asia, in Korea. It has been confirmed also in Europe. It's been confirmed in the United Kingdom. It's been confirmed all over. In the United States, it's been confirmed that most of the people who die from this thing are old people. And the reason is because when you grow old, your systems start to fail. You start to develop different diseases that are almost terminal. That is probably one of those diseases that are going to kill you at the end of the day, even if you call it natural death. So that's it. You already have so many pre-existing conditions at old ages. So that's the reason. That's the reason why younger people are not vulnerable to this disease. And even if they get it, they are most likely not going to die from it. Honestly, think about the fact that in the United States right now, because of all the protests, because of George Floyd and all those things that happened in June, many people are now starting to get the virus in the United States at this moment. And of course, it's young people that are getting the virus, because it was basically young people that went around and protested and, in mass gatherings and all of those things like that during those periods. So it's young people getting the disease at this point, despite the fact that this disease rate is skyrocketing in some places as much as 20,000 new cases in a single day in the United States. And yet the number of deaths are actually dropping. The number of hospitalization is actually dropping, or at least leveling off in the United States, despite all those things like that. That actually shows us, not just by theory, but by practice, that this thing is not deadly towards young people. If you are young and you don't have serious illnesses on ground, you are not going to die from this thing. That's just basically the way it is. And that takes me to the fact that all these sort of things that they are trying to do, that the Lagos government is trying to do, is completely impracticable. Honestly, it's not something that I can sustain. Boarding students live very far away from school. Generally speaking, most boarding students live far away from their schools. Some people even live outside town. Some people even outside the Lagos state itself. How do you expect these people to be coming every single day? Imagine if you are living in Ibadan. Imagine if you are living in Ondo State and you are schooling in maybe in a boarding school in Lagos State. How do you expect that student to always go over every single day to school? it's completely impossible. It's completely impractical. It's a very serious disadvantage to boarding school students. It's almost like you are putting them in a very serious disadvantage by this. I understand the good intention of what they're trying to do, but there are serious consequences to that. Just like they say that the way to hell are paved with good intentions, and that's actually what is happening right now, because there are always trade-offs in government policy. There are always going to be this for that. You are trying to adjust for this in order to do this and that and all of these things like that. Now imagine you have just placed a huge burden on the parents of students who are boarders. I mean, you have just placed a serious problem on them, and then imagine that it's even much more dangerous for you to allow them to keep going home every single day, because let's even say that they spread the disease in school and they get the disease. Now you're allowing them to take it back home to their parents who are probably older, who are going to be more vulnerable to it. Like imagine you have a parent that's 60, 70-year-old at home, and then you have to take this thing back home after you get, to contract it at home. It's not really going to affect you, the young child, just 17 years old. It's not going to affect you, but it's going to affect your child that's 74. It's going to affect, your parent that's 74 at home. That's the problem. So it's even much more dangerous for you to allow them to go back home than for you to just allow them to stay in the hostel. If they spread it among themselves in the hostel, which is always something that is inevitable, like I said before, because if anybody has really gone to any boarding school, you know that diseases spread like wildfire in boarding schools. Now, even if that is going to happen, it is very, very unlikely that any of them is going to die from it. So it's safer for the society, and it's safer to reduce the death rate in the country for you to allow students to remain in boarding schools. Honestly, that's the best thing for you to do. It's going to burn to that, like the disease is going to burn through the population very quickly, and all of them are going to be immune to it at the end of the day, because none of them are going to die from it, and they are going to have the antibodies against it, and it's going to be safer. Honestly, the best thing for you to even focus on are the teachers that are older. Focus more on the older teachers in the schools. Those ones are the ones more vulnerable. Those are the ones that you probably should tell them to stay at home at this moment. Let only younger teachers, 20-something, 30-something, maybe 40-something, to be the ones to go to school to teach these people, to be the ones to, supervise the examinations, the invigilators and all of that. Let those younger ones be the ones to do it. Don't allow 70-year-old man to be the ones teaching in those schools. You are basically giving that person his death certificate. Honestly, that's just the way it is. And then you have to consider the fact that it's even a lot of risk to the life of the students, and when you have to allow them to keep traveling great distances every single morning. And it's also going to be a very serious problem for them if they have to write exams after traveling in very serious and rigorous traffic and all of those things like that. Getting to school and having to write an exam is going to disorient them. It's going to really, really mess with their minds. They're not going to be all settled by the time the examination starts. So it's not a very serious, it's not something very intelligent for you to do this and to implement this sort of policy. Honestly, it's not something that is very, very good. And again, this is just a CYA. I always say this is basically cover your ass operation by the government, because I believe the government understand. They read the news, they understand, they read all sorts of reports from around the world. The medical advisors to the government of Lagos State, they understand what is happening, that this thing is not dangerous for young people. They understand that if young people are going to remain in hostels, it's not going to be a problem to them if they remain in hostels, but they don't want to be seen to not be taking actions, because all these things are politics. So in their response to this, to the worried parents, in their response to maybe opposition parties which are going to slam them if they just go on without being all that careful, those ones are going to slam them, even though it's going to be completely like a farce, and that's what is going to happen. So because of that, because of their cowardice, their political cowardice, that's why they are doing all this. That's basically the reason why they're trying to do all this, and it's completely impractical. But like I said again, they cannot implement this. It is not something that can be done. It is completely absurd. Anyway, thank you very much, everybody. I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Instagram.